let's bring on the director, Greg Whiteley, joining us here on the set. So I got to tell you, when I watched this, and I highly recommend it, were you ever depressed while filming or edited? What were you going through?
That's a great question. We're there for 4 months. They gave us all access. We just moved to Scuba, Mississippi, population 700.
The most rural, maybe poorest place in America?
I don't know if that particular city is, but it'd be on the spectrum. Mississippi socioeconomically is 50th out of 50 states by a lot of economic metrics. And so, yeah, not a wealthy part of the country.
So where are you from originally, and where do you live now?
Grew up in Seattle. I live in San Diego.
Okay. Those are very nice places to live. I've never been a big believer that football players have to be paid, but there's a tipping point now when I see digital money, TV money, players, coaches making $7 million. Boy, when you watch Last Chance U, the docuseries, you'll say to yourself, these guys deserve something. One of my takeaways is, and it's a community, it's the number one JUCO football program as far as talent to the NFL in the country.
Yeah, I don't have the stats on every JUCO, how many active players.
There's not that many, by the way. Only 3 states have JUCO football.
Yeah, this school outpaces the vast majority of D1 schools of getting kids into the NFL.
But these kids go here because...
Yeah, for the most part, they've all had D1 offers. In some cases, they've even played D1, and either because of academics, on-the-field issues, and in some instances, just because they're not getting the playing time they want and they want to leave that school, they're resetting their career or attempting to reset it by coming to a place like this.
When I think one of the takeaways I have is football players, perhaps more than any other sport, are almost parts, replaceable parts. You know, in the NBA, a lot of players have value. A lot of players translate to wins. Outside of quarterback, when I watched your series, I thought coaches use players as parts. And it's not to say Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, or Buddy, the coach is a bad person. But I found that this was just sort of a factory. And you humanized the people. But if you hadn't done that for me, players have a very short shelf life. Any one play, it's over. That's why I ask you, when you were doing this, how do you not get emotionally involved? I mean, were you sitting down editing and moved regularly?
As I said, grew up being a big fan of football. I love watching football.
Did you like the players or did you like the system? It's interesting. In the NBA, I get attached to humans.
Yes, I would have thought I love the players. But as I broke it down, players are a little more disposable in the sport of football than they are in the NBA or Major League Baseball.
And that's one of the takeaways I had with this film. Last Chance U, a docuseries on Netflix. Greg Whiteley is the director of this. First of all, how'd you get involved in the process? How did you find it? I mean, you like football and you're a documentarian, a director. How'd you get involved with this school?
Well, there's a guy named Lucas Smith at a production company here in Los Angeles at Endgame Entertainment, and he had this idea. He was a walk-on at the University of Kansas, and Kansas has a robust junior college football system. So he just was familiar, and you probably are too. There are all these great stories that you hear or read about in the world of JUCO, and so we thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we did a documentary series somewhere in junior college football? What became so advantageous about this program is not just their success, but it was the access that they were willing to grant us. This is a place that no one knows about. Outside of this GQ article, no one had ever had, nobody's paying a whole lot of attention to them. They'll get mentioned maybe occasionally in a blurb in a small section of a sports newspaper in Mississippi when they win the national championship.
That's right.
Right? So the idea that we might come with a full camera crew and do a Netflix documentary series, they opened their doors. And so for 4 months, we lived, ate, breathed with them, went to class with them.
Buddy Stevens is the coach. And for a lot of it, he is kind of low-key. There is a fight scene in one of the last episode, and he comes unglued. When in the moment of the fight scene and his visceral reaction, were even you guys surprised how ugly the scene and he got?
Yeah. So let me set this up. It's the last game of the season. They are ranked third in the country. Mm-hmm. And in order to play for the Junior College National Championship, you need to be ranked 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And they are ranked 3, so they need 2 teams that they won't play. They need one of those teams to lose. Well, on this last weekend, in fact, that team loses. So they're going up to play a team that is not having a great season. It's just assumed that they are going to win. It's a 4-hour drive from Scuba. I am having to take a trip home to go just see my family and then gear up what I think will be the state playoffs and a national championship run. And so our producer, Adam Ridley, is calling me on the ground saying, we're watching it. I'm watching the live stream, watching this fight unfold, and I'm getting texts from him, and he's worried for his life. I don't know if you can imagine. Most fights, we see a lot of fights in sports. You're lucky if they last more than 10 seconds.
Oh, this lasted
minutes. You can just imagine, and it got bigger and bigger, and fans are now starting to join in, and there's not enough police to remedy it. The referees, we have it on film, they are backing away. They don't know what to do, and it is a really scary scene. And that adrenaline spills over. So they call the game. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a moment where it calls the game. And the scene that you're referring to in the locker room, you're seeing a coach who I think emotionally has seen an element of his legacy in jeopardy. Tarnished maybe, but look, he was going to do something that was fairly unprecedented. He's going to go win his 4th national championship, his 3rd in a row, and it was all right there for him, and it disintegrates.
It's called Last Chance U, the docu-series on Netflix. Greg Whiteley, the director, is joining us. Players acknowledge nobody wants to play there. They're just doing it to get out.
Absolutely.
It's literally like it's an airport. They've just stopped by. They want to get on the next flight. Nobody wants to stay at an airport.
Yeah, your assistant coaches don't want to be there. They're working, hoping to go somewhere else. Even many of your academic staff, they're there in this tiny little town. That they have a great job, and I get the impression they love their job. And Scuba is a really lovely place to go visit. I love being there. I loved hanging out there. But professionally, you're looking for these other opportunities, and nowhere is that more true than these athletes who used to be D1 or at least had D1 offers. They are there trying to go somewhere else. And in a sport like football, where so often you have to get 11 people at a time to make sacrifices, or at least 8 or 9 of them to make sacrifices so that 1 or 2 can make a highlight-type play, that is a tough thing to sell to an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. And this head coach has to do it week in and week out.
So the school you do this on, East Mississippi Community College, it's not the greatest light. Inadvertently, because of this fight, it looks a little bit out of control. What has been the reaction toward them, from them, with you?
Well, I think most people acknowledge that incident was an aberration, and it was a sort of perfect storm of events that were rare. Coach Buddy Stevens has never had a season end like that. Few teams in Mississippi have had
There's
seasons
no
end like
resentment
that.
Toward you or the film crew or Netflix or...
No, I don't get that impression. I get the impression Coach Stevens is embarrassed over how that happened. And as he's told me, he after watching the series, he's now had a chance to see it. He feels like he has some changes that he needs to make. I just reminded him, and it's stupid. It's obvious to everybody else, but if I were to follow around, if anybody were to follow me around for 4 months,
oh, God,
and I were to watch that footage, I would have a laundry list of things that I would want to change. So, yeah, I mean, if there's resentment towards me or our documentary film crew for being there, it was never shared with me.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. It's raw. It is how the sausage is made. And this rural community college, East Mississippi Community College, puts out more NFL players on average than Division I programs, and the route in which they get there is There is a stick quality to this documentary. I mean, you just can't take I watched Hard Knocks, and the minute it ended, I watched this. And the comparables were in your favor. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Last Chance U. It's a docu-series on Netflix. The director is Greg Whiteley. This has been great. Thank you.
Colin, thanks for having me.